下正文さんと南和之さんです。
あとはこっちにおった子がやったって言ってる。
Hi, everybody. We're the Good Doctors of Abbey Research. I'm Dr. Kristen.
I'm Dr. Erin.
And you are very, very welcome to our YouTube channel for this edition of the Colonizers World Tour, which we'll get into in a minute. We are social scientists with PhDs who are obsessed with talking about culture, both popped and lived, because we believe that changing the world means sometimes unlearning how we thought things worked. And the best way to do that is to analyze culture. So we do that here on this channel through a variety of series and a lot of conversations, including why structured joy is so important and explains everyone's obsession with Hallmark movies, to exactly what Bridgerton could do a little bit better in talking about race, body shape, and fantasy, to be honest, and how to do that all a little bit differently. We talk to each other all the time. We turn on the recording devices for y'all. And so if you want to talk back to us, we would love that. Please comment, DM, email, carrier pigeon, and we would love to chat about anything we talk about with you.
Owl post.
Oh, owl post. Yeah.
We're open to almost all forms of communication, except I don't read semaphore. So don't try that. As Dr. Kristen said, this video is part of our Colonizers World Tour series. This month, the month of June, we are looking at the very, very big tent of global queer life to zero in on what some LGBTQ experiences look like in parts around the world and how colonization has impacted and shifted and changed that. So our video yesterday was the big old tent of some stats and facts and concepts of global queer life. But today we're focusing on a piece of art, and we are looking at the 2019 documentary of Love and Law that was produced in Japan. And it's basically the story sort of Kazu and Fumi, who are two lawyers in Osaka and openly gay life partners, but it's also about the cases that they choose to take through their law firm, and the stories of what Japanese society is, what it values, and where people who don't fit into those values, what happens to them and what are their lived experiences. So it is not explicitly only about LGBTQ life. It's about all sorts of marginalized folks, and how Kazu and Fumi are their cheerleaders and protectors and legal arguers. And it was beautifully done. It's such a fantastic story. And we just have a few quick points we want to bring up about it.
Something that is interesting to me is I had the privilege of spending a day in Osaka when we were on vacation, and the park that they're in a lot in this documentary is somewhere that we went. So I immediately screenshotted it and sent it to my husband. I was like, look, there's a really, really good ramen place right around the corner from there that we went to on our food walking tour. But something that I remember our guide, who was an American expat, which is one of the reasons we booked his tour, is we wanted his perception on things and thought that would be fascinating. One of the things that he said is that the most important thing in any Japanese conversation is how does what you're about to say affect everybody else? And then he made the point that Osaka to Japan is like Austin to Texas, where it doesn't really tell you where Japan is going. It just is kind of its own island within it. And that may not be other people's perception, but that was definitely his. And to me, it fits with the narratives we're hearing in this documentary. Because when it felt different than Tokyo, even when we went, it felt different than Kobe. So it was fascinating. But the most important thing in Japanese culture is collectivism. And something that Dr. Erin and I were talking about offline is that it's almost as though they are our mirror state. So the United States scores 95 out of 100 in individualism, which is so apparent in everything we do. So we don't know how to do community.
A little bit too high.
And I don't know Japan's score on collectivism, but I'm going to guess it's 95. And they can't do individuals. So if we could, and they're terrible colonizers and we're terrible colonizers, guys, it's like our shadow state. It's like, it's honestly our absolute opposites in so many ways. I think the same level relationship we have with eating burgers, they have with eating fish. I think it can really work. I think I can do this.
I think I can make it happen.
Anyway, neither one of these is the way to human.
Right.
And so both of these cultures are completely out of balance.
Yeah.
And it means that the marginalized are even more vulnerable in these two cultures. And that was I really was struck with that throughout. Even their laws and their obscenity laws are essentially designed so that no one is offended because everybody is more important than one person. Just fascinating.
I know. And I think like the description on Vimeo, which is where we rented this for $5 US,
worth every penny,
worth every cent, talked about this idea of collective unity being absolute from the perspective of the state. And we often make this distinction on Colonizer's World Tour. There's a big difference between the state and the people. But from the perspective of the state, collective unity is obsolete. And so it is absolute, sorry, not obsolete. Americanism coming out there.
Yeah.
Collective unity is absolute. And so maintained at the expense of individual rights and freedoms. And it is through that lens that then we get the stories that Kazu and Fumi encounter. They have an performance artist and sculptor who...
This is my favorite of the stories. Several of the rest broke my heart, and this one made me sad too, but it was also just like, I want to be your friend.
She was
editorial comment.
She's was just the best thing ever. But her main production is a little caricature called Miss Vagina. And she was indicted for violating the obscenity law because she produced vaginas. And so that gives you, I think, a real good snippet of like how this collective identity and how, you know, if you don't follow the rules, quote unquote, in Japanese society, the rules and the laws can start to restrict you. And they also have this concept called read the air. And if any of our Japanese friends understand this better, this is kind of how I got it through the documentary. It's a huge part of how you figure out how to behave in society and how you figure out the rules you need to survive in certain, you know, situations. So you read the air and see what's happening around you and what everyone else is doing. And it's this idea that collectivism and the group is more important than the individual. But the story of Miss Vagina and the artist that produced her will stick with me forever. And I might have enjoyed that only slightly more than Kazu's singer-songwriter career. And the video he made for Fumi was fantastic. But we learn a lot about different kinds of marginalized folks. The unregistered individuals in Japan, y'all, we don't have time to get into it, but please watch this documentary and then look it up because I'm going to be looking it up. I don't understand it and it looks horrible. But yeah, this idea of the traditional family structure dictating who is and isn't a recognized human is a concept I was unfamiliar with.
In terms of a piece of art, this is in the documentary stream of that there is no narrator.
Right.
There is no voice that you hear besides the participants in the documentary. We do know the documentarian is female at one point, or she uses female pronouns because I think it's Fumi talks to her. I can't remember.
When they have a row.
They have a row. My God, it was adorable. But it adds to the incredible intimacy. Like there's a lot of scenes where I was watching it and being like, well, this is taking too long to do this in my very narrative driven self. And then I would remind my narrative driven self to just settle into the gift I was being given and seeing this moment and seeing these lives. I don't watch a lot of these kind of documentaries where it is just a slice of life. It's not as much how I prefer to consume stories, but I'm really, really glad I did this one. And I'm really I honestly can't encourage it enough. It's an hour and a half of your life. Give it over to these other stories in this place. There's subtitles are excellently done. You won't be lost.
No.
And it's very immersive and intimate it's a gift to us.
Yeah, and in terms of, covering it for Pride, Kazu and Fumi are still like the protagonists, if you will. And it is about their life as gay life partners. They talk about their wedding, they talk about when they met, they talk about whether their family was or wasn't accepting, in a way that's very natural and a part of the story without being the explicit focus. So I do think it is a great addition to our Pride coverage, because it's just about humans.
Yeah, it's lived experience.
It's lived experience, and that is so valuable in a way that so that it's not like explicitly we're uncovering queer life in Japan.
Yeah,
like,
and it's also not about trauma.
Yeah, we're looking at humans, and these two humans happen to be gay and in a long-term committed relationship. So
let's applying to be foster parents, and
let's tell their story. Oh, Kazumo, the kid that they like momentarily adopt and take care of, was like the best. Oh, I loved him so much, and he's such a sweet kid, and he learns how to cook, and then he wants to have a happy family. Y'all, I'm just gonna go off. But yes, it is a fantastic addition to our Pride coverage because it is not explicit, because it is lived experiences.
We're so grateful to have found it. If there's other documentaries like this that you know about, please let us know. Also, Dr. Erin, where are we heading next week?
Next week, we are heading to the Philippines.
Oh.
I know. I've already started learning about it. I'm a little nervous. It's a fascinating place. I knew very little about it. So we will be talking about, in our 101 video, all sorts of Filipino things. And then we also have a piece of art to cover for that week.
We hope we've inspired your curiosity, and we also always hope you can feed ours and tell us what you thought about this. Please feel free to do the YouTube-y things. That thumbs up really, really does help. YouTube loves an algorithm. If you liked this content, we provide a lot like it. So please subscribe and hit that little bell, and you won't miss a thing. We hope that we've taught you something, and we look forward to learning from you. Until next time, see you guys.
Bye.